Florida to New Jersey.
Houston, Philadelphia.
Times Square. Right. Watch the ball drop.
We've been Trinidad and Tobago.
Down to Florida to defrost for a couple of days.
In the middle of a busy travel week, millions across the country are facing a messy mix of rain, snow, and ice from a storm system pushing its way east. Hello, I'm Erin McLaughlin in for Gadi Schwartz, and you're watching Stay Tuned Now. It's stressful enough to travel around the holidays. Now try doing it in the middle of a brutal storm system that has a large part of the country in its sights. The Midwest is already seeing heavy snow and ice from the same storm that brought blizzard-like conditions to the plains earlier this week, where a combination of ice and snow is covering roads. Meanwhile, heavy fog blanketed skyscrapers in New York City earlier today. While on the West Coast, the National Weather Service issued high surf warnings all along the coast, especially in Oregon and Hawaii. And when you mix busy holiday travel with bad weather, you inevitably get significant flight delays and cancellations. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has a closer look at what millions of Americans are dealing with tonight.
Tonight, concerns for Southwest Airlines, the carrier experiencing more than 1,000 flight delays today, of the more than 5,000 flight delays nationwide, according to FlightAware. The airline telling NBC News air traffic control is to blame because it reduced the flow of traffic. The delays happening just a year after the meltdown that left millions of Southwest passengers stranded. The Department of Transportation recently fined the airline a record $140 million. Some of the airports today hit by the worst delays were in Florida.
We already delayed 2 hours.
For the second day in a row, the FAA slowed down traffic because of flight congestion. At Palm Beach today, there was even a total ground stop of all departures. Meanwhile, one of the busiest areas for flight travel, the East Coast, is bracing for a storm. From D.C. to Maine, a drencher that could drop as much as 3 inches of rain in some places from tonight into Thursday, with the threat of flooding. The region blanketed in fog this week, redrawing skylines in Boston and New York City. This morning, 7 million people were under low visibility warnings. And the plains continue to battle dangerous winter weather. Semis and cars sliding off icy highways in South Dakota as Colorado cleans up from the blizzard that dumped more than a foot of snow. In Nebraska, 20,000 people were left without power. Just days before New Year's Eve, millions of people looking to get somewhere and hoping they're on time to celebrate.
Stephanie Gosk, thanks so much. Let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman for a better assessment of what's going on out there right now. So, Michelle, there's a lot of stormy weather moving across the country. What kind of conditions are out there right now, and could it impact travel?
Hi there, Erin. Great to see you. We kind of have it all out there. We're looking at some snow falling. We have some rain, some mountain snow, and some really windy conditions. We're really soggy on both coasts. So the Pacific Northwest had a storm system that moved onshore today. Still seeing that rain and the mountain snow falling there. On the East Coast, we're soggy. We're going to be very soggy throughout the next couple of hours into the early parts of Thursday. A little bit of a break, but still unsettled on Thursday, and then another storm system moving in on Friday. Sandwiched in the middle, we have some snow falling. We don't have the blizzard warnings that we had yesterday or the day before, but we still have some snow falling in portions of the Midwest. That is the blue on the map, and even some freezing rain in some spots. So certainly we're seeing some spots that are treacherous to travel in. Flood alerts, we are looking at 10 million people impacted by flood alerts. That includes Philadelphia, because we are expecting heavy rain tonight into tomorrow, and that's on top of ground that is so saturated from the heavy rains that we had recently. We're going to be watching the rivers, the creeks, and also the streams as we go throughout tonight into Thursday. This is what a close-up look of radar looks like. You can see that snow on the backside of this system, that colder air working into portions of Missouri, also Illinois. That's the blue. You're seeing some pink, too. That's freezing rain. And then you're seeing the green. That is the rain. The brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where the heavy rain is falling. So there's a lot of it in portions of the Great Lakes, the interior parts of the Northeast, down to the Mid-Atlantic, and also a little bit in the Carolinas as well. So we are unsettled today. We're going to be unsettled tomorrow as well, and then also on Friday. This is what it's going to look like. That area of low pressure moving off to the north and east. Heavy rain tonight into the early part of tomorrow. And then we're going to see some showers throughout the day. Certainly plenty of cloud cover. We had some fog yesterday. We'll see those low clouds once again again today. And then the Midwest, you're going to see that snow continuing to fall. So places like St. Louis could see some snow. And then as we near parts of Friday, we're going to see that snow kind of swoop all the way down to portions of the Tennessee Valley. So Knoxville, you can see some snow. Even down to parts of Alabama, south of Alabama, you can see some snow, and still seeing some heavy rain on Friday. We're not talking a whole lot of snow, a few inches in some spots. The most spots would be northern Maine, where you see that darker blue color. Also the Appalachians, we could see some heavier snow, but still it doesn't take a lot to make those roads really slippery. Additional rainfall, we're looking at the chance of some river and urban flooding. Where you see those brighter colors, that's where we're expecting the highest amount of rainfall. That includes Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, so the major cities along the I-95 corridor. No doubt it's going to impact air travel in some spots. So possible delays tomorrow in Chicago, New York City, D.C., even Tampa, and then off to the Pacific Northwest. We're looking at Seattle with some possible delays as well. San Francisco, you might see some delays because we're looking at some really windy conditions, and we're looking at that coastal rain. And then especially on Friday in parts of New England and the Northeast, we're looking at Boston, likely delays. New York City, same story. I think we'll clear it out for the most part in Philadelphia, also D.C., so we should be pretty good there, although we could see some lingering showers later Friday, and then we're going to completely clear it out later on in the weekend. We are also talking about trouble along the West Coast as well. Isolated morning showers, a dry afternoon break. So we had that front that moved on shore today. We're going to be dry later on tomorrow, and then another front moves on shore, but still keeping those winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. That's tough for the airport, for the plane travels. And even if you're in the higher mountains, you're going to see that car kind of holding onto the steering wheel a little bit longer. Friday, we're looking at that next storm system approaching, and we're looking at a wall of heavy rain moving onshore. So we're expecting a lot of rain here, up to 4 inches in some spots. Where you see those darker colors, again, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where we're expecting the most amount of rain. So this includes parts of California as well. Erin?
So, Michelle, this all brings us to the big question. Will any of this soggy weather impact the iconic ball drop in New York City this weekend?
So here's the good news. We are unsettled today. We are unsettled tomorrow. We're going to be unsettled on Friday as well. But look what happens as we get towards Sunday. Things are looking so much better for the ball drop. For bringing in 2024, temperature is not that bad either. I've covered so many New Year's Eve in the city, and we've seen single digits, really bundled up. 39 degrees in Times Square, partly cloudy skies, so we're expecting dry conditions. It's going to be chilly, but it's not going to be that cold. Erin?
Well, that is good news. Michelle Grossman, thank you so much. A major victory for former President Donald Trump in Michigan today. The state Supreme Court ruled that he will stay on the ballot during next year's presidential primary. This is in stark contrast to the decision made by the Colorado Supreme Court just last week. The court ruled he was ineligible due to his connection to the January 6th riot at the Capitol. In a statement on Truth Social, Trump applauded the Michigan ruling, writing, quote, "This pathetic gambit to rig the election has failed all across the country, including in states that have historically leaned heavily toward the Democrats." Let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos for the latest. Danny, why two different outcomes in essentially similar cases?
Because these are two different states with two different state court systems interpreting each state's respective law as it relates to election law. And that is the way the Constitution really, in many ways, designed the states to work, that they independently administer their own elections. But of course, the presidential election is inherently a constitutional federal election, so there is some overlap. But that's how two different courts in two different states can arrive at two different results. For example, just to give you by way of example, the Colorado case involved a full evidentiary hearing on the issue of whether or not Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. That didn't happen in Michigan. And in fact, the Michigan Court of Appeals, the court right below the Michigan Supreme Court, actually discussed that as a difference in its opinion, acknowledging the difference between having an evidentiary hearing and having no hearing at all, just deciding it on the facts presented.
And Danny, today in federal court with respect to the election interference case, there was a motion filed by special counsel Jack Smith. What was that about?
He's trying to, there are a couple different motions that have been going on, but he's trying to prevent the court from hearing certain political arguments. This is no surprise at all. This is something Jack Smith's team was planning to do. And if they have it their way, they will avoid President Trump making arguments to the effect of, I'm being railroaded by the Biden administration. That's really what this all boils down to. But the Jack Smith team is coming on all fronts. They are fighting this in many different ways, trying to get the courts to decide things quickly. That was the most recent issue with the appeal to the Supreme Court from the D.C. Court of Appeals in the D.C. case. So they're firing on all cylinders right now.
Danny Ceballos, thank you. Tonight, as Israel intensifies its military operations in central Gaza, the United Nations warns that there is no safe place left for Gazans to go. The Israeli military has declared refugee camps in the Gaza Strip as, quote, new battle zones, warning thousands of already displaced people to leave. Refugees there now face the dilemma of trying to find another place to go or becoming a military target.
رموا مناشير وقالوا نطلع وغداء في دروسنا وخبطوا ب16 وزنانات وحزام ناريات حوالينا وطلعنا فوعينا من الدور.
Today, the World Health Organization said they were, quote, extremely concerned that this new displacement of Palestinians would put strain on these health facilities in the south, which, by their account, are barely operating to begin with.
There's blood everywhere in these hospitals at the moment. We're seeing almost only trauma cases come through the door, and at a scale that's quite difficult to believe. It's a bloodbath, as we said before. It's carnage.
Gaza's health ministry says the death toll is now over 21,000. And now Israel's chief of the general staff warns that the war on Hamas will, quote, go on for many months. As of now, talks for any sort of truce appear to be at a standstill. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray has more.
Let's begin on the ground in Gaza, where the offense is expanding in the central portion of the Strip outside of Gaza City. The IDF now saying it is targeting some of the refugee camps in that area, calling the areas, quote, a new battlefield, saying that Hamas has mingled in amongst those who have left their homes for an area that they were told would be safe and now must find somewhere else to go, adding to the chaos, the panic on the ground there, the fact that there continues to be a communications blackout, so no cell phones, no internet, so that's making it much more difficult for those trying to find some place where they can be safe. The fighting is very intense in very densely populated urban areas, and the IDF says that they will continue this effort for as long as necessary while continuing airstrikes to the north, and over the last 24 hours saying that they have indeed killed a senior Hamas military leader. They haven't said who at this point, and that they've hit more than 100 targets in that 24-hour time. The Hamas-run Palestinian Health Ministry says that more than 250 people have died during that same time period. Israel says that they are dealing now with 7 other fronts to this war, 7 other areas where they are taking and responding to fire, and says that everyone who acts against us is a potential target. There's concern not only here in Israel, but globally about the regional escalation of fighting to the north along the Lebanon border. We know that the Israeli Air Force carried out a raid in the last 24 hours on what they say are military sites and other infrastructure belonging to Hezbollah. And let's remember, American troops across the region have been targeted as well, more than 100 times since the middle of October, with no expectation that those attacks will ease anytime soon. In Tel Aviv, I'm Jay Gray. Back to you.
Jay Gray, thank you for that reporting. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says it's discovered the largest Hamas tunnel yet near the Erez crossing in northern Gaza. Our team was given an exclusive tour of this tunnel. NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman has more.
Ever since this war started, Israel has been saying that the Hamas move to build tunnels underneath civilian infrastructure in the Gaza Strip was one of the reasons that it is so difficult for Israel to conduct this war without potentially putting the lives of civilians in danger. And today we got a first-hand look inside what Israel says is the largest Hamas tunnel discovered during this war so far. It's about 10 feet tall with concrete walls. It's actually able for a car to be driven into it based on the width and the fact that there is a declining slope from the surface of the earth into this tunnel. Israel says that this is only about a quarter mile from the Israeli border, but that it extends some 2.5 miles into Gaza toward Gaza City. Now, NBC News cannot independently verify what Hamas was using that tunnel for, whether it was used for any military purposes or how recently it was inhabited. But NBC was invited to tour this tunnel by the IDF as they are really working to bolster their claims about how Hamas, in their view, has jeopardized the safety of their own civilian population. As Israel says that there are hundreds of these types of tunnels throughout the Gaza Strip, the Israeli government now looking for ways to try to destroy these tunnels, even as they say that getting every single one of them is going to be a very difficult task. But they say it is critical that Israel be able to root out these tunnels if they are going to be able to accomplish their goal of completely eliminating Hamas.
Josh Letterman, thank you. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. A man is now being charged with hate crimes after he allegedly stabbed 2 teenagers at the Grand Central Terminal here in New York. Plus, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Mexico as a caravan of thousands of migrants heads toward the U.S. border. And Gypsy Rose Blanchard went to prison for the murder of her abusive mother, who tried to treat her as if she was terminally ill. Well, now she's being released after 8 years. That's all just ahead, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Today, Republican-led committees requested documents from the White House about Hunter Biden's deposition as part of their impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden. They say they're looking to determine whether the president was involved in his son's decision to not comply with the congressional subpoena. Tom Smothers, one half of the comedic duo Smothers Brothers, passed away yesterday after battling cancer. Smothers was most commonly known for sharing both the screen and the stage with his brother Dick, and the two used their platform to express their anti-war views and support civil rights. He was 86 years old. South Korean actor Lee Sun-kyun from the Oscar-winning film Parasite has died in what officials call an apparent suicide. Police say Lee was found dead in a car in central Seoul after he allegedly wrote a suicide note and left home. He had been under investigation for drug use, but said he was innocent. On Christmas Day, a man stabbed 2 teens at Grand Central Terminal, and now he's being charged with hate crimes. The 2 teens, ages 14 and 16, were eating with their parents when the suspect, Stephen Hutcherson, stabbed the 16-year-old in the back, then the 14-year-old in the thigh. Before approaching the teens, he allegedly used an anti-white slur. He's been charged with attempted murder and assault. Both teens are expected to be okay. And last night, the Detroit Pistons made history, but not in the best way. They became the league's first team to lose 27 straight games in one season. They are only one more loss away from tying the overall record of straight losses set by the Philadelphia 76ers back in 2014, which extended into the 2015 season. Well, today, as the southern border crisis continues to escalate, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Mexico to meet with their president, Lopez Obrador. And needless to say, the stakes are high. Just last week, several days saw record numbers of migrants apprehended at the border. And right now, a caravan of more than 7,000 migrants is traveling through Mexico, making its way north. NBC's Morgan Chesky has the latest.
Yeah, we're here in Eagle Pass, and what difference a week makes, because it was on this very spot we stood a week ago and looked into a field of migrant families during a period of time that was breaking records for illegal crossings. Today, however, we're experiencing a bit of a lull. However, that may not be lasting long. We do know that there is a migrant caravan that has been spotted in the southern state of Chiapas, Mexico, that is about 1,000 miles away from where we are. But the organizers say that they're now 8,000 strong, comprised of men, women, and children, slowly but surely making their way north. And it's caravans, groups like that, that certainly helped precipitate this meeting today between Mexico's president and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. That meeting is in Mexico City. Both countries agreeing that something needs to be done sooner than later to handle these record number of migrants we've been seeing. Among the potential topics of discussion in this meeting, finding a way to incentivize migrants to stay in Mexico longer or potentially permanently once they leave their Central American countries of origin. A potential solution for that, a work visa that would allow them to provide for themselves and or their families while they're there instead of rushing to the Rio Grande. Border security, another key issue as well. We do know that President Biden has promised additional funding for upwards of more than 1,000 Border Patrol officers. Mexican authorities also say that they are pressed to keep up with the number of migrants with the law enforcement they have on hand. So essentially nothing is off the table from a solution standpoint if it could potentially help the issue that these two countries are facing simultaneously. And we know that from the migrants we've spoken to who have made that journey here, as dangerous as it's been, as long as it's been, upwards 4 or 5 months in certain instances, they say that it's absolutely worth it to leave the danger of their home countries behind. And we'll send it back to you.
Morgan Chesky, thank you. According to the latest Quinnipiac poll, President Biden is ending the year with a 38% approval rating. But with his re-election race less than a year away, what will 2024 bring? NBC's White House correspondent Mike Memoli looks ahead.
For President Joe Biden, 2023 began with Democrats wondering, will he run? As the calendar turns to 2024, they're now asking, can he win? He started the year with political momentum.
He and the Democrats have defied history.
Republicans took control of the House, but Democrats won key Senate and governor's races in the midterms, running on abortion rights and protecting democracy. In April, Biden made it official.
When I ran for president 4 years ago, I said we're in a battle for the soul of America, and we still are.
But the months ahead took a political toll, with Republicans seizing on inflation and record border crossings, triggering showdowns over the debt ceiling and immigration policy.
No, every town is a border town, and that's crystal clear to everybody but the White House.
And the Supreme Court striking down plans for student debt relief.
Stand for what? Student debt! Stand for what? Student debt!
Ukraine's fight against Russia stalled, and war erupted between Israel and Hamas.
You are not alone.
Now, the president's approval ratings are at all-time lows, and some polls show Donald Trump ahead in a likely rematch.
2024 is our final battle.
2024 presents fresh challenges. Not one, but two budget deadlines loom that could trigger government shutdowns.
On this vote, the yeas are 221 and the nays are 212. The resolution is adopted.
House Republicans long focused on Hunter Biden's business deals, teeing up an impeachment trial.
I have been the target of the unrelenting Trump attack machine, shouting, "Where's Hunter?" Well, here's my answer. I am here.
As the president's son faces federal indictments on gun and tax charges, a special counsel continues to probe whether the president mishandled classified documents. And while Biden struggles to maintain support for Ukraine, he's also warning about China's designs on Taiwan. After ordering a spy balloon shot down, relations with Beijing remain fragile.
I again emphasize to President Xi that the United States does not seek conflict.
Biden's early support for Israel will continue to test his political coalition at home.
Under Biden, I think we've made grave mistakes that have led to the death of almost 20,000 people.
Biden's 2024 kicks off with a rare challenge for the Democratic nomination and potential third-party challengers who could complicate his path. His pitch relies on a recovering economy.
That's Bidenomics.
And selling accomplishments like the infrastructure law.
We've got a record to run on. And most importantly, we're not only changing this country, we're transforming it.
While framing the election as an existential choice.
There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. The MAGA movement.
Voters will be keeping a close eye on the 81-year-old incumbent, with every misstep adding to Democrats' worries. The president's age putting an even bigger spotlight on Vice President Kamala Harris, who figures to be a big part of the re-election fight.
So many of our hard-won freedoms are under attack, and this is a moment for us to stand and fight.
Part of her focus? Young voters, women, and minority groups that aren't sold on Biden. Biden's first run for Senate came in 1972. 2024 marks his fourth run for the Oval Office. After more than 5 decades of political upsets, setbacks, and comebacks, his last campaign may be his toughest yet.
NBC's Mike Memoli, thanks so much. We have some breaking news. The Colorado Republican Party has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn a landmark ruling disqualifying Donald Trump from the state's 2024 primary ballot. The Colorado Supreme Court disqualified Trump from the office of the president under the Constitution's 14th Amendment, ruling there was enough evidence that he, quote, engaged in insurrection from holding office. Trump's own legal team has already said it intends to file its own appeal. And coming up, you may remember Gypsy Rose Blanchard. She's been in jail for 8 years for the murder of her abusive mother. There were even TV shows made about it. Well, now she's being released. We will have those details. But first, you got to see this. A man was rescued from an 18-wheeler that was dangling on an overpass in Florida. Firefighters were able to reach him and get him to the ground safely only after they secured the massive truck in place to make sure it didn't roll forward. The driver appeared to be okay before being taken to the hospital. Wow, what an incredible rescue. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following. Protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza used debris to block an entrance to Los Angeles International Airport this morning, stopping traffic on one of the busiest travel weeks of the year. LAPD says the road was leading into LAX was cleared after about an hour, and that a number of people have been arrested, though it's not yet clear what charges they face. Hundreds of California Pizza Hut franchises say they will lay off some 1,200 delivery drivers. It is expected to happen as soon as February, right before the state's $20 an hour minimum wage hike goes into effect. Restaurant owners opposed the wage hike when it was being signed by the governor back in September, arguing they could not bear the cost. But it is still unclear whether the increased wages are a factor in these jobs going away. And part of Laguna Beach in Orange County, California, remains closed after another sewage spill. Local officials say 2,000 gallons of sewage leaked into the ocean. The affected water area has remained closed to swimming, surfing, and diving for 4 days now. This is the second sewage spill in there as many months. The previous one closed a much larger section of the beach, since that spill was nearly 95,000 gallons of sewage. Gypsy Rose Blanchard is set to be released from prison tomorrow, where she served 8 years for the murder of her mother. Blanchard's boyfriend at the time told police he stabbed Dee Blanchard to death at Gypsy's request using a knife that she gave him, noting it came after a lifetime of abuse at the hands of her mother, who treated Gypsy as a terminally ill patient, even confining her to a wheelchair. Gypsy pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Her case is well known to many after gaining worldwide attention and even inspiring the award-winning Hulu miniseries, The Act. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz joins us now. Okay, Liz, for anyone who is not aware, can you give us some background on this case and the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard and her mother, Dee?
Yeah, Aaron, this is a wild story. Many say that Gypsy Rose was a victim of what's called Munchausen by proxy. Her mother, Dee, falsely claimed that Gypsy Rose had leukemia, had asthma, had muscular dystrophy, had the mental capacity of a 7-year-old. She forced her, as you mentioned, to spend her childhood in a wheelchair, to use a feeding tube. She shaved her head and made her have 30 painful surgeries, Gypsy Rose said, that she did not need. Things all took a turn as Gypsy Rose got older and began to question her mother. She then met a boyfriend on an online dating app, Nicholas Godijon, and together they hatched a plan to murder Gypsy Rose's mother, Didi. Godijon stabbed Didi to death as Gypsy Rose hid in a bathroom. Aaron.
Okay, so after 8 years in prison, Gypsy Rose Blanchard will soon be free. Has she reflected at all about her adolescence and the murder of her mother?
Yeah, actually, Aaron, she just did an interview before her release with People magazine where she says she regrets the murder. She said that she struggles with what she should have done at the time, whether it should have been going to family and telling them what her mother was doing or going directly to police. But she says, you will never hear me say that I am proud of what I did. She says, I regret it every day. And also in the interview, she said that she knew as a little girl that she didn't need a wheelchair, that she could walk, that she didn't need a feeding tube. But the other stuff was really confusing to her. And she says her mom was just so manipulative that she was really forced into submission, Aaron.
So between the show and the documentaries done on her life, some view Blanchard as a sympathetic hero and a victim. What might her life look like after prison?
Yeah, I mean, she has a lot of fame now, and there's a lot of people who do see her as a victim in many ways. She has written a book that is set to be published in January. She has reportedly gotten married while in prison, not to the ex-boyfriend, but to another man last year, although she has not spoken publicly about this. She did also just tell TMZ that her big goal when she gets out of prison is to meet her idol, Taylor Swift. She said she even has already purchased tickets to an upcoming Chiefs game. Aaron.
Wow, Liz Kreutz, thanks so much. They're the crimes and trials that horrified and captivated the nation. From the Alex Murdaugh trial and the Idaho murders to two major cold cases solved, the Gilgo Beach murders and the disappearance of Natalie Holloway. Dateline's Keith Morrison has a look at the cases we couldn't stop talking about this year.
Disturbing new details coming to light in the Alec Murdaugh murder
developments in the killing of 4 University of Idaho students.
Rex Hewerman tonight accused of being the Gilgo Beach killer.
Every year across this great land, there are crimes that draw our attention, stories from which we simply cannot look away. And this year was no exception. In January, all eyes turned to a South Carolina courtroom for one of the biggest trials in decades. Once powerful attorney Alec Murdaugh stood accused of killing his wife and son.
You're going to reach the inescapable conclusion that Alec murdered Maggie and Paul, that he was the storm.
He didn't do it.
The case hinged on one key piece of evidence, a cell phone video that proved Alec lied about where he was when the murders took place.
Come here, Cash.
Alec himself took the stand for 2 days of riveting testimony and admitted he hadn't told the truth about that night.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave.
But he said he was not a killer.
Are you a family annihilator?
A family annihilator? You mean like, did I shoot my wife and my son?
Yes.
No.
Do you think putting him on the stand hurt their case?
Yeah, I don't think it helped it.
It took just 3 hours for the jury to convict him.
I sentence you for the term of the rest of your natural life.
This year also brought us face to face with the man who police say committed acts of unspeakable horror in Idaho. Brian Kohberger has been charged with stabbing to death 4 college students in the middle of the night.
The maximum penalty for this offense is death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Victim Katie Gonzalez's heartbroken parents were there in court to watch him.
If he is indeed the person, I feel that no mercy should be given to him.
Police say DNA ties Kohberger to the murders.
Hello, I am Officer Langus.
As does a car Kohberger was seen driving here that was also captured on security video near the crime scene.
All rise.
The judge has entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. The victim's families and friends now wait for a jury to decide his fate.
It just hurts. They should still be here, you know.
We wake up knowing that we have reached justice for Natalie.
2023 also saw the end of a near 20-year mystery. The disappearance of Alabama teen Natalie Holloway in Aruba, a source of so much pain for her mother, Beth, who spoke to Dateline in 2008.
Not knowing is that's the daily torture.
Joran van der Sloot long suspected of killing Natalie, was extradited to the U.S. this year, charged with trying to extort Natalie's family. And as part of a plea deal, he agreed to confess.
I'm actually with Natalie walking along the beach.
Vandersloot said that when Natalie rejected his sexual advances, he hit her in the head with a cinder block, and then
I walk up to about my knees into the ocean, and I push her off into the sea.
It's been a very long and painful journey, but we finally got the answers we've been searching for all these years.
Rex, did you do it?
Another years-long saga took a stunning turn this summer when police announced they discovered the identity of the Long Island serial killer.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant.
Police arrested 59-year-old father of two Rex Heuermann outside his Manhattan office. Few who knew him could believe it.
Completely bone-chilling.
If this is true, yeah, he's lied to us.
I mean, he was just a normal guy.
In July, Heuermann was charged with murdering 3 women along Gilgo Beach, and police said he was strongly suspected of killing a 4th. He pleaded not guilty.
A trial is still a long way off. Are you confident that Rex Heuermann will spend the rest of his life behind bars?
If you ask me, I'm sure that he'll never see the light of day again.
Keith Morrison, Dateline, NBC.
Imagine getting into such a bad crash. You're stuck inside your mangled car for nearly a week without any way of calling for help. A man in Indiana lived this reality, and it wasn't until 2 fishermen stumbled upon him that he was saved. Here's NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster.
Indiana State Police tonight celebrating 2 fishermen who discovered a man trapped in a mangled truck stuck under a highway for 6 days.
It's a miracle that he survived and that he was found.
Just before sunset Tuesday, police say Mario Garcia and Navardo de la Torre were scouting for fishing holes along Salt Creek when they spotted something under this I-94 overpass.
You didn't even know it was a car.
I didn't even know it was a car. It looked like just a bunch of metal at first. It was that mangled up. It's a pickup truck.
They say they walked up and found 27-year-old Matt Ream pinned inside.
Police say the car narrowly missed the guardrail, drove on the grass shoulder, went airborne, likely rolled around for a bit, ending up on this side of the creek.
So I woke him up and he turned around. He looked right at me with his eyes wide open, like the biggest relief you've ever seen on a person. Like saying, are you real? You know, and yet, yeah, we're right here.
Police say Ream drank rainwater to survive.
His sheer determination that he was not going to die.
Tonight, his family says he's in critical condition, but was grateful to be found.
He asked for our names individually, and then he says, thank you very much.
An afternoon walk.
I see it as an act of God.
Turning into what these Good Samaritans call a holiday miracle. Shaquille Brewster, NBC News, Portage, Indiana.
Still to come, deadly Christmas storms in Australia. Those details plus other stories trending around the world are next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. A deadly storm in Australia has killed at least 9 people. The storm hit Christmas Day and continued yesterday with high winds, hail, and torrential rain. Local officials say crews are trying to restore power to tens of thousands of customers. The hardest hit area was Queensland, where at least 3 inches of rain fell in a 24-hour period, which ended this morning. A Russian drone attack on a train station has killed at least 6 people in Ukraine. Local reports say around 100 people were waiting for the train at the time of the attack, which also struck an area power grid, leaving some 70% of the city of Kherson without electricity. Today's attack comes a day after Ukrainian fighter jets fired upon a Russian ship in the Black Sea. Dozens of French actors and other public figures have come to the defense of a prominent French actor, Gerard Depardieu, who has been accused of sexual harassment and assault. In a letter published this week, his defenders write, quote, "We can no longer remain silent in the face of the lynching that has descended upon him." Over a dozen women have accused Depardieu of harassing or sexually assaulting them. And in one case, he has been charged with rape. Depardieu denies any wrongdoing. International pop star Shakira gets immortalized with a 21-foot statue in her hometown in Colombia, where legend has it she began her trademark dance at just 4 years old. Shakira thanked the sculptor Eno Marquez and his students for their, quote, enormous artistic talent. Well, the U.S. military launched a retaliatory airstrike at an Iraqi airbase on Tuesday. President Biden ordered the attack after an Iranian-backed militia group injured 3 U.S. service members in a drone strike on Christmas Day. NBC News Tehran bureau chief and correspondent Ali Arouzi has the latest from London.
So the U.S. military has attacked Iranian-backed militant groups in Iraq hours after U.S. personnel were injured in a drone strike on a U.S. airbase in Iraq early on a Tuesday morning. Now, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said 3 sites used by a group called Khatib Hezbollah were hit in response to attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. So who are Khatib Hezbollah? Well, they're a militant group financed, trained and armed by Iran and have been one of the most prominent proxy groups that Iran uses in the Levant. They have been involved in a string of attacks on U.S. interests in Iraq for some time now. They were created back in 2007, based in Iraq, but also have a very strong foothold in Syria. They surface from time to time in Bahrain and Lebanon, depending on where Iran needs them. And they form part of the group called the Hasht al-Shabi, an umbrella group of militia under Iran's patronage that have also been incorporated into the Iraqi army. Their purpose is to expel U.S. forces from the region and put Israel under as much pressure as they can. And their attacks escalate depending on the regional situation, which is usually determined by Tehran, who feel at any given time it's in their interest to ratchet up or ratchet down tensions. Clearly right now, Tehran believes it's in their interest to take tensions up. So as this conflict in Gaza continues, Iran keeps issuing threats which are carried out by their proxies with alarming frequency these days, whether that's the Houthis disrupting shipping lines in the Red Sea or militias in the Levant targeting U.S. interests.
NBC's Ali Arouzi, thank you. Before we go, it's time for the future of everything. AI absolutely blew up in 2023. Next, a look back at the year of artificial intelligence. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Time now for the future of everything. Tonight, we take a look back on all of AI's strengths and weaknesses we discovered this year. But first to Israel, where researchers have found that a woman's tears can apparently ease aggression in men. The scientists found that sniffing women's tears reduced men's aggression by more than 40%, as shown in their behavior and brain activity. While it was first tried out by lab rats, they say that these findings may extend to all humans and even other mammals. And today, the New York Times filed a new lawsuit against Microsoft and OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, for copyright infringement. The publisher is saying that they abused the paper's intellectual property using millions of articles published by the Times to train chatbots. The Times say the companies should be held responsible for billions of dollars in damages, and they want any chatbot that used copyright material destroyed. They are the first major American media organization to sue the companies over copyright issues. And speaking of AI, this year has shown us just how fast technology can really advance. Artificial intelligence was once just some far-fetched technological concept, but today has evolved into an integral part of our lives. It's become more complex and more capable. We've seen it perform tasks that were once thought impossible. It's had breakthroughs and setbacks, but we can all agree that AI has done some remarkable things, and it has no sign of slowing down. NBC's Jake Ward takes a closer look at how we got to this point.
Artificial intelligence
could soon transform Hollywood.
And the harm this software can cause.
2023 was when AI went from nerdy jargon to a daily part of politics, entertainment.
ChatGPT, dude.
even schoolwork.
How many of you use the AI like ChatGPT or Bard in this discussion?
It has come at us very fast. ChatGPT from industry leader OpenAI now has 100 million weekly users just since its launch last year, with 92% of Fortune 500 companies using the technology, according to the company. But beyond ChatGPT, the stuff AI did this year is amazing. It caught a glimpse of our thoughts.
So as long as I have seen it and you know the patterns of my brain, then the AI will read that out of my brain.
Yes, exactly.
Spotted mental health risks in children.
An output will say this is a patient at high risk, this is a patient at low risk.
And created tons and tons of weird art.
The godlike power to commission any artist in history.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
But as 2024 approaches, AI's ability to trick anyone's eyes could be the end of trust.
Deepfake, face swap, unbelievably easy to do.
Right. In just the time it took us to set up our cameras, UC Berkeley professor Hani Farid made me look like I had starred in Doctor Strange.
This is
on my laptop.
On your laptop in
half an hour,
10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes.
Wow.
But that same tech in our politics can be dangerous. The Republican National Committee already aired one AI-generated ad full of fake imagery.
Closed the city of San Francisco this morning.
Go to Slovakia right now, where the Russians are trying to interfere with the elections. Go to the Sudan, where we're seeing fake audio trying to stow civil unrest.
Still, David Holtz, founder of AI art company Midjourney, said earlier this year that the risk of misuse is not worth giving up on AI.
It's better just to trust people, that they're going to use things in good ways. You're always going to get some edge case. That's just what having an effect on the world is like.
AI investors like former Google CEO Eric Schmidt say companies should more or less regulate themselves.
There's no one in the government who can get it right, but the industry can roughly get it right, and then the government can put a regulatory structure around it.
That argument has mostly won out. Europe and China have both moved forward on broad AI regulations this year, but as 2023 winds down, the U.S. remains the Wild West for AI. A world-changing technology moving so fast and with little sign of slowing down. Jake Ward, NBC News.
And we end tonight with the Museum of Lost Memories, a digital collection of moments people might have thought were lost forever, but now they're finding their way back to their rightful owners. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro tells us how.
They say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Summertime in a swimming pool, having like a family dinner, taking a picture in front of somebody's house. Like, these are all just really special moments that people had.
But what is it worth to someone who has no idea who is in the photo?
All these photos have a story behind them, and every single picture is a picture of a real person who lived a real life.
What started as a pandemic project developed into a mission for David Gutenmacher, creating the Museum of Lost Memories.
So the bride's name was Lulu, groom's name was Frankie, and they were married on June 5th, 1965. Some old footage of someone opening a Christmas gift in 1974.
It's an online collection of photos, slides, and reels of film David hopes to return to their rightful owners, or at least to those who recognize the people in the pictures.
I've been able to return thousands of things to dozens and dozens of families.
What's the reaction you get when you connect someone with their lost memories?
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a little bit of skepticism that people don't understand how this got out there or how it got back to them, but everyone's been shocked and grateful in a good way.
He finds the images at various thrift stores and flea markets. The albums and boxes of film often sold off in estate sales.
I've also heard plenty of stories of people just misplacing something or donating it by accident. A lot of cameras I'll find with film still inside or SD cards still inside the camera.
With the magic of social media and more than 600,000 followers, David has a built-in team of photo sleuths examining every detail.
Everyone has their own set of skills. Some people are really good at dating specific artifacts, and some people just are able to recognize a location from a photo because they grew up there.
One success story uncovered World War II history when he found this old roll of film with a note and the name Friedman inside the canister.
So the note said these were taken in April 1943, and it was written in German, so I knew that the family was in Germany in April 1943. And then finally somebody was able to recognize the family on one of these ancestry websites and matched up the exact family with the photos that I found. We found out that they escaped from Vienna and they fled in the early 1940s, and these were taken shortly after that. So it was so special to be able to return these core family memories back to the original owners.
This set of pictures was not dated, but the hairstyles and fashion clearly said 1990s.
It was from Chapman University. I was 18 years old.
Diane Prunier says a friend recognized her among these photos, and she recognized her old classmates.
The first photo, I was like, oh, that's my friend Dan from Chapman University. I kept scrolling through and I was like, that's my friend Lou. I was like, that's Michelle. And then I was the last photo. So the professor had maybe taken these photos of us. So I don't know how they ended up from her ownership to like a flea market in San Diego, but somehow he found them and posted them. And I think it's wonderful.
Melissa Donofrio also had that magic moment of recognition.
This photo right here of my Uncle Mike is when I went, oh my gosh, like that's my family. Like that is my Uncle Mike. What's going on?
In her case, an entire photo album mistakenly donated to a church when a family member passed away, brought back memories of loved ones.
And in this photo is my grandma. And I knew it was my grandma in a heartbeat.
I have one photo of a great-grandparent of mine, and that's the only photo that I have of him. So to be able to like give back a family photo that might be one of the only few memories of that person is really special.
This reel of vacation footage from New York City in 1965 captured the buzz on the city streets, a window to a different view of everyday life.
And people were commenting, I remember that store, I used to eat at that restaurant, like just things that this family that was here on vacation filmed.
Photographs also capture life's most precious moments, like this one-day-old baby or the somber passing of a loved one. Vacation photos sometimes documenting a landmark that no longer stands today. David's latest endeavor, tracking down the owners of these memories.
I'm grateful that I'm given this chance that I can cherish them myself, but also hopefully give them back to someone who can cherish them too.
A holiday gift just waiting to be seen. Valerie Castro, NBC News.
That does it for us tonight. I'm Erin McLaughlin. We'll see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.